and this is what I've struggled with. It's like not necessarily the Morrigan being like a dark goddess, because she's both. She is light and dark. And it's learning how to work with the two and learning discernment. And so the discernment is, it's like, when is it necessary to go like battle fury? You know what I mean?
What you're saying is, I don't want to do it, but I guess I have to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's picking and choosing, like, what battles is worth fighting. She has changed my life so very much in the last several months. Like, I get so emotional. She's not like that loving motherly tough love, but not the motherly nurturing love, but there are sides of her that I do see that is very like motherly and nurturing, but like, hey, you fell, get up.
Honestly, I think that even right now, even looking at you, or even like through conversation we had over the phone, like before this recording, like I think that you put down your sword and realize, as the Morrigan, I could annihilate you, but I'm not going to do that today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, finishing, or I guess even like having a two-part of all of this, like we were talking about how Morrigan is your mother, but even as we had our little break, I remember that we wanted to talk about healing our inner child, but again, perhaps this, I guess, our inner child even with yourself, working with the Morrigan, has taught you how to repair those like traumatic like childhood experiences of doing it the wrong way because you were told that, you know, or perhaps even as a young when you were younger, others were quite aware of your strength and they were like, oh no, we need to, like, you know, we can't have that. And it was sort of like a redirection of like, no, you can give yourself permission. It's just that people are afraid of others when they rise into themselves and they believe themselves and they have confidence, which is why I feel like she's so misunderstood, because she comes across as nurturing and very disciplined. And as a Capricorn yourself, we love structure and discipline. But perhaps even like within our inner child, like we often don't give ourselves permission to be those things, because again, it's all about giving yourself permission to heal, giving yourself permission to play with your inner child, giving yourself permission to be open to you know, positive reinforcement when it comes to your inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that we all sort of been, you know, even through non-traditional, you know, parental figures, or even like traditional parental figures, like how we grow up is ultimately just a small portion of the reprogramming and the responding rather than reacting. Because again, when as our inner child wants to throw a fit or a tantrum, and perhaps even as we were growing up, we were allowed to throw tantrums, but now as an adult, we're like, well, we can't do that because it's neither constructive, and not only is it neither constructive, but you're just adding volume to a bigger conversation.
I wanted to go back a little bit because we were talking about like things we grew up through childhood, and my upbringing was not terrible, but like I was like a big secret in, like, as far as family goes, like whose kid I was. And because my parents never married, and so, to make a long story short, um, it all revolved around, and I think we've all felt like this. It's like, where do I belong? Where do I belong? I don't fit here. Um,
Mm.
and so for just to kind of give you the abbreviated version of this, um, I grew up with I grew up with I grew up with my mother and a person that I was brought up as my stepfather. Okay. My mom informed me with my last name. Growing up, you have all these questions like, why is my last name not the same as my brother's name? I don't understand. And it's like, well, you're not his daughter. Your dad has passed on before you were born. Like, okay, so my dad's in heaven, like that kind of thing. So for 16 years, um, you hit your teenage years, you get rebellious, and so you do the things that any rebellious teenager would do, and you have parents that are concerned in your well-being and stuff like that, especially being the firstborn and the girl. And I'm sure people can relate. But I had that moment where I told my stepdad that, well, what are you concerned about me for? Like, you're not even my real dad. And that opened the can of worms to come to find out that he was actually my biological father. Yeah. So, yeah. So
And
through
down the rabbit hole we go, curiouser and
down,
curiouser.
yeah, my friend, it's like, my mom watches my channel. Hi, mom. Like, we get along very well. But and that was like one of the things I had to, and I'm sure she'll probably call me, why did you say that? But like, it's not to call her out to be a bad person, which when we started this talking about the inner child, uh, Omar and I had been talking about this, and I said, hey, there is this video I would love for you to watch. It's through Kelly Anne-Maddox. I love her to death. Um, and she's so helpful to a lot of her clients. And she shared things that were very personal with her. And it's going back to those time frames in our lives of the child that we once were, depending on the age, which this one I described was 16. And when it comes up in adulthood, it was a reoccurring theme. Like, I don't know where I fit. I don't belong here. Like, I feel like the bull in the china shop. What do you mean I can't be unruly and throw a tantrum? Because I loved to do those, especially like alcohol infused. Like, it was not pretty. And so so when I got in recovery, like, it helped me, again, here's the Gemini, the duality of both sides, of understanding why my mom did what she did, why my parents did at the time. And I call her husband that passed on my adopted dad, which he is very much present in my life. And I kind of feel like I'm completing something he couldn't do, which he passed away as an alcoholic. We don't share any DNA. Okay. But I don't know if you saw that, but like, boop, like he went. So, hi, John. So I just got chills. He loves to be the center of attention. There's another story, but that's another day, how really cool that is. But, yeah, so, uh, yeah, that was a lot. So understanding what my mom did, what she did, my parents doing what they did, um, them doing the best that they could, that is kind of like, not to excuse, but to get to acceptance, to understand why things were the way they are, to maybe have the hurt a little bit less. Um, to see both sides of the coin. Um, again, it was mentioned in the video with Kellyanne, that maybe our parents haven't really told us a whole lot about their life growing up or how it was. And I've heard some pretty serious stuff from other people. And it's like, how can a parent do that? Well, then the thought comes of, it's like, well, what makes you think they didn't experience that when they were a child? So they did the best that they could. It's kind of like conditioning the person to I kind of feel like this is like Harry and like the whole thing with the with the video going on right now with the royal family. But the conditioning, and it's like, if that's the only thing that you knew, then hell yeah, that's the only thing, that's the best you could do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But when you wake up, it's kind of like you go through the 5 stages of grief, like anger, resentment, uh, depression, like all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then acceptance being the last one. And it's like, okay, yeah. So,
No, I resonate with a lot with what you said because I grew up in a very Christian Baptist upbringing, and we were told that we weren't allowed to watch Harry Potter or even celebrate or participate in Halloween. When I was like, fairly really young, like probably perhaps until the age of 7 or something, I would dress up because I wanted to, and other than that, like I never had the opportunity to dress up because, again, within the conditioning of the church and the school I went to, they scared me into believing that, like, well, that's bad. And I was like, well, I don't want to be bad. Like, I want to be good. And I'm a really obedient child. And I guess throughout growing up, I always felt like I don't belong here. But for some reason, like, this is all I've ever known. And I went to a school that was from pre kindergarten 4 to like high school. And I was very fortunate to go to the school because it did have a great education. But at the same time, within their confines of their education, there was no sense of expression. Couldn't express yourself in a way that wasn't deemed as appropriate. So growing up, I felt like it's not that I acted out. I think that when I was like perhaps 17 or 18, I was like, you know, I just I don't agree with all of this anymore. And I think that I've been sort of stifled or sort of censored to an extent where it was like, we want what's best for you, but I guess what was for them, and I guess their prescription wasn't the right medication, or it wasn't the right way of doing things because, again, like, you go through so many sort of internal struggles of like giving yourself permission to be. And I remember when I was like, I think 14, they told us that, like, oh, if you're gay, you're going to hell. And that for me was just like, but I've been good. Like, and I struggle with a lot of that. And it becomes a lot more self-loathing, and start thinking like, but I've been doing this since I was so young. I've not me.
mm,
And then you start to like hate yourself, and you don't express the parts that are very feminine about you because others, in high school or even like through junior high, started to bully you or to even like pick on you in a way that, like, well, you're different, you've always done along. But again, it's also about giving yourself permission not care. And I know that even growing up and even after leaving high school, because I went to different high schools because I moved a lot. I think my senior year of high school, I moved with my grandma because I didn't want to go finish my high school experience where I was at with my mother, because she moved to the high desert in Los Angeles, and I just didn't want to be there. And at the same time, I just felt like I didn't go to prom. I didn't care because I felt like I don't necessarily care about these people. I'm just here to finish, and that's it. And I know that my friends or my tribe is out there. I just haven't found them because I've been so conditioned to believe that these are the people that you have to be with. And even though you see the hypocrisy and the heresy even within the church, or even how they act. And I was like, something telling me that I don't belong here. I don't belong here. And then I guess along the way, when you go down through, you follow the yellow brick road and you realize that like others sort of encourage you to be more of who you are, be a lot more of that, because the things that you were taught that were bad are actually the parts of you that are actually shine the brightest. And even knowing that, it's taken some time to, even within myself, to give myself permission to say certain things or express myself in certain ways or dress a certain way where all the colors and not necessarily be so monochromatic black and white, because if I didn't put on certain colors and express myself, I wouldn't have gotten like even after school and like leaving all those people that I did grow up with for since I was like 5 years old. I mean, I would just go to the school knowing these people, my classmates, since kindergarten 5, and then you grow, and then you progress, and same people. So it was
Mhm.
interesting that when I left high school, when I left that, like, you start to become an adult, um how I was well received or sort of given acclamations and praise, like, wow, you're so much cooler like now than you were before. And I was like, oh yeah, it's because like I've always been this way. But even in that bubble, I was ostracized for it. Like it was heresy. Like, ooh, why are you so different? Or why are you like that? But now it's funny because now I don't, I'm not stuck in that place of comparison of purity, because I know that um perhaps my purity that I needed to through simply by expressing all the things that I was afraid to be when I was, tying into that inner child of like, oh, you're not supposed to like that stuff. You're not supposed to um, you know, play with your 3 4 year old cousin and dance with her and do all those feminine things, because that's not what boys do. And even again, being silly and playing with all the colors in the crayon box really allowed me to be a lot more comfortable within myself. And yeah, I even struggle myself even nowadays trying to, again, like, oh, I don't want to be extra, I don't want to put on those boots and have that attention on me, because that's not how I should be. And I even have friends that always like make fun of me and like poke fun at me. They're like, come on, Prudence McPrude, stop it, do it. We don't care. Express it, do it. But then again, it could also turn sour, and you might get a little too cocky and think that you're better than everyone, or you're like, I'm the loudest. And I guess even I'm going through my Saturn return. I don't know if I've mentioned this before multiple times, but even now it's like, all right, let's humble ourselves. Like we can be all these people, but it's truly the intent as to why you're trying to heal those those inner child wounds that one has within. But I guess my inner child has been challenged to be a lot bolder, be a lot more expressive, say the thing, and be creative. And I've always dreamed of going to like a costume party, or even going to a Halloween party with like maybe a friend, or even like a boyfriend or a partner, that we could go together and I could experience that once again, because I never had that. Because when I see how others would sort of get excited for Halloween, it's not that I didn't get excited, it's just that I don't know what that feels like, because I was never given the permission to be silly and be scary and spooky and sort of like, ridiculous. But it's, I guess, through that I realized, I mean, even drag queens and just putting on a persona, putting on like a personality that's not yourself, and really allowing yourself to be silly and to act out these things that you once weren't able to. I guess I'm tying that with Halloween, which is, I'm like, I never dressed up with wild, wacky colors, because I was often never allowed to, because it was deemed as like demonic, or like, oh, that's too much. You can't do that. That's not how you're supposed to act. But now that I'm deprogramming myself and, escalating myself down the ladder of, no, you're allowed to do all those things. Like, I can't believe no one's ever, and it's not that like I'm blaming anybody. It's that again, like tend to go along with the narrative of like, oh no, that's just way too ostentatious. I can't do that. But I can. And I'm giving myself permission as a 29-year-old going into this, 30s. Again, this is my story. It's not the same for everybody else, but I've realized the more that I give myself permission to play and to be silly, others just like it. And I love sort of like I used to be very serious and very shy, but as I've grown older, it's funny how everyone perceives you as like, you're almost going to be 30. I thought you were like 23 or something. I'm like, yeah, no, I had to do a lot of deprogramming and taking away the seriousness of it all and really like making someone laugh in the moment, doing something silly just to lighten up the mood for that moment. And I guess that's my tale, my story, my medicine, and it's really just enabling the play in other people, because I know that sometimes my inner child doesn't want to play because it doesn't know how to play, or it's never been given like the tools to get creative, so
No, man, one, I wanted to cry. And two, again, I kind of feel like I'm just like wanting to cry the whole time. Are we
I
hitting the new
don't blame
moon?
you. Pisces season will do that to you.
Oh my goodness. Yes. 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 Um, no, I started with telling you about like, how we transitioned the conversation, because we were talking about the Morrigan, and then we switched on to like family traumas, and um I wanted to talk about, it'll come back, hang on. I wanted to talk about how I found that similarity with you, talking about like, well, you're being good, but like when you do something that is so left field, basically, that is going to the parents instilled the fear of like God's gonna punish you, which I heard that a lot. That was like the line for disciplinary action if I didn't get my stuff together. And then at some point, I don't know if you felt like this before. It's like, well, if I'm going to hell anyway, I might as well make the best of it. Like, like,
Mm-hmm.
and the cool thing is, um, being the witch, we don't believe in hell. So, and I don't. I mean, there's so many things where it's like, I mean, potentially it could, but talking to the other friend I made on YouTube, the other Halseer, his matron is hell. Hell is like one of the daughters of Loki, and he's like, I look forward to going there. Like, you know, and she accepts everyone. She's very much like not that I'm trying to go off into matron topic, but it was the point into the joke of, you're gonna go to hell, and that's how he makes the fun of it, like, well, I'm showing you because, she's my matron. But I lived with that for so long. Um, my mom made the best of it. We did celebrate like the holidays and stuff because she found that very like one of the opportunity things when she came to America. Um, and so she really enjoyed it, but it was the fear of religion to me. I have a really good relationship with my mother today. I really do. I love her so much. I've been talking about getting her to record a video with me about what she learned back home from my grandmother before she moved here. Um, as far as like hoodoo practice back home. Um, you know, and there's a thing where it's like I I wish there was so much more. Like but again, that's a part of the journey. I understand now, of things were that they were. They had to do the best that they could. Um, and I understand. The second point I wanted to bring up is you talked about deprogramming, is the reparenting. We're
Mhm.
reparenting ourselves to acknowledge what we're feeling, going back in that time and place of associating the feeling, the situation, about what we experienced earlier. And if there's something that's similar that we're going through right now, nurturing that child, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on that as far as using the word reparenting yourself.
When I heard the phrase like reparenting yourself, I think that my mother has never really given me a restriction as to, I guess, my own personal self-expression, but she knows that when I'm heated, I'm telling everyone, I don't care. But again, she's a Libra, so she always is the peacemaker of all of the things. And as much as I love my mother, and as much as like she's giving me the tools to be myself, even giving me a safe space to, listen to the music I wanted to, or even like, express myself into deep diving into the multiple interests that I had. Like she never was restrictive in that way. But I guess again, it reparenting myself socially, reparenting myself by again playing, because when I was a kid I didn't play with toys. I drew, I played a musical instrument since I was 9 up until like 19, and I was always connected to those things. So I was given those things, but I was never given sort of like when I was growing up going to the school, like we had a uniform. And when you go to middle school, when you get to middle school, you have these things called demerits. And I was so good that I never got demerits. It was so good. But even then, like, it was like, you know, being that Virgo archetypal figure of being like so prudish to listen, you don't have to be so minimal. You can wear textures. You can wear a color of a shirt that isn't you. But again, for me, it was like getting comfortable with the colors, getting comfortable by not just wearing navy blue and black all the time. Although those are my favorite colors, I love them. I love all gradients of blue. But within like the conditioning of that school I went to, it was just very, you got 3 colors: red, green, and navy blue. That's it. And you wear that every day. And there's no sense of like personal, adornment or even being different or straying from the creativity of expressing yourself like through clothes. And like I did, but I mean, I didn't get to do it in every day. And even growing up, you start to, like you want to know who you are, what you're wearing. Even now, like as the person that's going through a Saturn return, I'm like, there's something about like playing with things, playing with colors, playing with textures, playing with outfits, and playing with that for me makes me feel sort of like a kid, or it makes me feel like I'm reparenting myself in a way that it's like, no, go, you can wear those boots, you can wear the those colored pants, or you can wear that shirt and really play with the color wheel a little bit. And then I realized that like as I've reparented myself, other people look at me as to like, oh, well, if you can be silly, then that gives me permission to be silly too. And I'm like, no, by all means, I encourage everyone to be dumb for a moment, you know.
Yes. 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 I
And I know that
I
just because
agree.
I carry it so well does not necessarily mean that it's been easy, because it hasn't. And I know that if it weren't for the help of my friends to give me the push, because I remember going out to this gay bar years ago with a friend after work, and I wanted her to dance with me. And she's like, oh no, I don't dance. You know that, like, I'm just here for you. And I'm like, but what was the point of being here? She's because like, she said, well, it's because like, you know, you wanted to have fun. So I'm here to help you, support you, have fun. And I was like, okay, but like my other friends dance with me. She's like, no, go, just dance. I'm fine. And then she told me something that really hit home. She was like, you know, you're a lot cuter when you're not so self-conscious thinking about what others think of you. Because when you don't care and you're really in that moment, other
Mm-hmm.
people are looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to stop being so self-critical and think of like, stop being so like, am I being the right person? Am I like, you know, following the rules?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's through my allowance of giving myself permission to not care and not necessarily follow the rules that really enabled me to, I guess, you know, reparent myself, to give myself permission. Because I think everyone that I've met along the way has seemed like the gradual, like, not caring, the gradual feeling of, oh, I can be sassy too.
Mm-hmm.
And before
Mm-hmm.
it was like, you can't say that. Don't speak out of character, or don't speak up, because when you speak up, then that's when you get disciplined. And I've been told by even family members, like, going through like a car accident, and like, you know why that happened to you, right? It's because you don't go to church. And it was so hurtful, because you would think that like, even through family, that they would be a lot more compassionate of like, hey, we don't know why this happened, but we're glad you're okay. But it was just another moment to hate on my sexuality, hate on how I was straying from the sheep. That made me realize, although you guys grew up a certain way, I have nothing but compassion for you guys, because I can see that there is that wound of wanting to stray a little bit and being a lot more expressive within yourself and being a lot creative, but you haven't quite given yourself permission. And that's where I sort of like check myself to not be so aggro towards them, because I realize, oh, I'm just living out your insecurities, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes you, I'm living through you. And I mean, again, like, it might trigger some, but I know that not only am I healing myself, but I'm showing others that like, it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. Like, I know that you weren't given permission, but like, again, I've been there, and I might be wild, but at least I'm free.
Yeah. 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 And it goes into being your most authentic self. Like, instead of repressing the anger, because we were taught like you shouldn't show anger. You need
Mm,
to you know, uh compose yourself. And it's like, but I'm angry, and like anger is such a shame feeling, right?
mhm.
Um you can be angry. It is the actions you take that I see where it's like you got to sit and process it for a minute before you start doing, because before you do something, um not necessarily what's going to come back to you, but like what is the repercussions going to be, what's going to be the result, good or bad,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And that's how I look at it. But again, it all depends on the person and what they view as good or bad. you know
No,
um
yeah.
so I I do look at it as
Not to interrupt you, but it all comes back to that phrase that I always repeat to everybody, that
mhm,
Jessica Rabbit says, I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way.
mhm,
I'm not
mhm,
bad. And I think that even as like a Gemini, everyone's like, oh, you're a
mhm,
Gemini, I'm not going to trust you. I'm like, I'm not bad. I'm just drawn this way. But again, you don't know me yet, and that's fine, but like I'm not one for everyone to understand or get or even like want to trust, because I know that for me, I'm like this like stray cat that I'm like, listen, don't fence me in because I'm never coming back if you do that. Nope.
For real. You know, I have said this and I will say it again. That's okay. I'll still love you anyway. Um, I don't have to have anything to do with you. But if I'm not your cup of tea, that's okay. And if you're not
Don't
my
sit at
cup of
my
tea,
table.
that's fine.
Hmm.
Like that is completely fine. Completely fine. Um, yeah. But just don't come at me aggressively.
Hmm.
You know?
It,
Like,
again, it's coming within like coming with peace and knowing that like I see your strength and I see mine and I see you, but I'm going to give you that peace and I'm going to walk away, and you can sit over there and I'll sit over here, and we don't have to like, mess with one another. You can just leave us alone. We'll leave each other alone. We don't have to say anything. But again, just because we have a disagreement does not necessarily mean we should disrespect each other. And I think that like even with growing up, like you think that like if you have a disagreement, you must like battle it out and feel that sense of pride of it, like I was right.
yeah. I heard a joke one time. You can take it however you want it. But the lady, she was telling her story. It was a recovery story. And I was just so glad she was part of the LGBTQ. And and so like she was just like, man, do you know how many times I wanted to be right? So many times. She's like, let me tell you something. It really doesn't even matter who's right. What matters is who's left. But the way she had approached it, it was to be really funny with a lot of like the political things going around. But like,
Mm-hmm.
it's true though. It is about who is left. Who is left? Like, we're all just trying to get by, trying to survive, and not step on the toes of other people. And, and there are going to be people who cross, and it's just like, is this energy worth it for me to react a certain way to this person who doesn't even know me? I don't even know them. Do I really want to engage or can I disengage? And I have that permission. I give myself permission to take that choice today. Versus the inner child part of me, going back to elementary school, of trying to fit in again. Where is my place? The mean girls, I couldn't sit with them. They'd want to be my friend this time and then they're not. um and it was all about, I just want to be accepted by people, and that goes into self-worth. um this person doesn't like me, and then that goes into the same thing too when you start dating. It's the same repeat behavior over and over. Maybe if I do this, they will like me.
Validate me, daddy.
Daddy, yeah, daddy issues are a real thing, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And mommy issues too, but it's,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, like, this could be a 4-part series where we're just trying to heal heal a little bit of the inner child a bit, yours
There's
or
a
and or mine.
no, yeah, there's, I mean, again, like it's there's so many different, there's a complexity to the inner child that one can't just encapsulate through just one conversation,
Mhm.
because there's like so many levels to, I mean, I guess on an individual level, or even like on a, mass scale, what we're doing with our inner child. But um yeah, there's a lot. There's so many, even with children, although it might seem simple, they're very complex still, because
Mhm.
they themselves don't even know how to communicate what they're feeling. It's all emotion, and it's always going back to like you know, communicating in a way without words, because you, within this Pisces season, we're choosing to respond with feeling as opposed to logic. And the more that you approach a child or your inner child with logic, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of us, as we grow older, become hardened to not want to feel. And I've always been told, like, even through working relationships, you know, you're like the one of the most emotional men I've ever worked with. And I'm not saying that's bad, but like just saying, like, you're kind of emotional. I'm like, yeah, I've always been. I just feel a lot. And like, I just want to like deconstruct everything and really try and make sense of it, because it's not, I'm not saying that no one's ever giving me that emotional care, but no one truly knew the prescription that I needed. And only you know what the medicine truly is.
Well, and for exploring what works for you to
Uh-huh.
understand yourself better, you
Mm-hmm.
know how to understand the people you encounter in your lives, whether it be parents, friends, lovers, partners, co-workers,
Mm-hmm.
anyone. So, yeah, yeah. Um,
This was an exhausting, like, emotional, like, recording.
this is shadow work, dude. Like uh I mean, you gotta do it constantly and just get it out. What a beautiful way to do this before like getting new moon. We're like the waiting moon days are just kind of like it's like, okay, get this stuff out, get it out. And then it's like new moon, manifesting, like let's bring
Mm-hmm.
in the new shit, you know?
Mm-hmm. No,
And
but I think that with this new moon, I think that a lot of us are gonna have a lot more spiritual upgrades, and um really trying to create healing through art, whether it is in so many different forms, so many ways to be creative, and giving ourselves that permission to be like, be dream bigger. Because sometimes, like when you were younger, I can't say it was for me on personally, but I think that a lot of us were told to have a small-minded perspective, and then when you leave the small town and choose the big city, you're like, wow, I can't believe I accepted less for so long. I can't believe I didn't allow myself to dream bigger than myself. But again, it's about taking the risk to believe that there is something bigger than you, whether it be in a small town or whether you live in a big one. It's about, I think in this new moon, in this new moment that we're approaching, it's really about like finding yourself truly and reinventing yourself on a spiritual level, on an
mm,
emotional level, on a healing level, because Pisces is all of those things. It's the very last sign. And I think that, yeah, it's great to see a physical manifestation of a change, but really the juice is within,
mm-hmm.
you know, it's the
Yeah.
essence, it's a flare. And you, I mean, sometimes, you know, even, I mean, I guess even if you were to meet somebody and you're like, I, you know, I wouldn't be attracted to you, but just your personality makes me really like you because you wear it well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that. I like folks that like, not saying that aren't physically beautiful, but like, you know what I mean? That kind of
Yeah.
catch you by surprise, or you're just like, whoa, I wouldn't, you wouldn't, I guess you wouldn't have my attention typically, but for some reason, like you're doing something to me. There's an
Yeah.
essence there that I'm like, whoa. But again, it's always back to like the emotional, the being in tune with your emotions, being emotionally transparent. And I like at the moment with this Neiman and Pisces, I want to be a lot more emotionally transparent. I want to be a lot more spiritually freer, because I know
Mm,
that is the foundation of everything. We have heard multiple times before that we are spirit beings living a human experience. So, what better time to upgrade your spirit so that you can see a physical manifestation within the everyday practical magic of your mundane, you know? And I think Pisces really is that mystical sign that adds a little bit of magic to every day. It's within the daydream where you start thinking like, wow, what if it happens, you know? And I think that it's really potent in this moment before anything else, because we're going through a shift.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are we going through a shift, but like what better time to plant those seeds within yourself and within other people to inspire? Because I mean, you can inspire yourself all you want, but I mean, it's also just inspiring everyone around you, you know, because again, by healing your inner child and really expressing those parts or tending to those insecurities or those hurts is where you really start to shine and help other people sort of like, wow, like, look how I want to be that. Where how can I feel that what they're feeling? And
Yeah.
people learn just by watching behavior.
Yes. Yes. I, yes.
And it's not even to
I
be
don't
like,
even know
oh,
what
you're
to say to that.
copying me. You know, it's not even you're
Yeah.
copying it. It's like, well, I want to be that free. I want to be that light. And again, I love Pisces season because it allows me to not take everything so seriously and to dream a little bit and to take time to do something so unconventionally stupid or something that isn't necessarily going to pay you, because at the very end of the day, an artist creates solely for the basis of wanting to create, not for the awards, not for anything else, because I know that when artists get big-headed and become their ego, it's their work that isn't the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you still have to go to highest self versus just self-will kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this also applies to because I've gotten in conversations with this about friends, and they're just like, you caught on so quickly on certain things and all that. I'm like, look, guys, just start. It doesn't matter how old you are. Just start somewhere. It's still it's a part of self-care. It's honoring yourself. um and again, you and I have talked about this, about time. Like, time, we have, as a human race, we created time. So time manifests more to us as human beings when we say, I am running out of time. You manifested, I am running out of time. I wished I had more time. Maybe you are finding more time in that day when you wished you had more time. And then when you have the more time, you're just like, I don't even know where to start or what to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's something that we created. If we exist to where we just, again, time granted is there, it's here. But if we just pretended like a child would, that time didn't exist, just doing the things, doesn't matter in this human form of a body what we look like, what we can do. Yeah, maybe we might be a little in fear, a little scared of trying new things. But do things that push you out just a little bit. It could be there's times where I'll make something, I'm like, well, this is crap, and it's like somebody be like, no, this is great, you know, because I am my own worst critic. But I still made it and I could keep perfecting at it to make it better. Um, and so on and so forth. So it's like, doesn't matter how old you are, the timing, just start. It's doing you a favor, than just being like, I can't change anything, and you end up getting so serious, you don't play. And, I think I mentioned that in the last episode. It's just like, we didn't really want to sign up for adulthood. Maybe we did. And then at some point, it's like we turned in the contract of like, I am just going to work and I'm exchanging the contract back to whoever it was that I gave it to of like, I'm not playing anymore, you know? And it's like, no, I want to renegotiate my contract. I want both. Like, you know? So,
No, you're right.
yeah. So the other thing, I got a message. We should probably, uh, I should probably lighten it up a bit. Because you did get a little spotty a couple times. It caught up though. It was like, okay, you know, it's like yeah. And it's like we don't want people to come in and feel bummed. I think they do appreciate that we're being so vulnerable and being open. That's what I'd hope. Um, you know, for whoever's watching and listening, because yes, our personal experiences are something that's close to us, but and what we've gone through, and it's very valid. And but I don't know if you're going to do this, but I am this Saturday. I am committing in the afternoon. I am having an inner child day. So I told my niece, I'm going to try to get my husband on board with this as also. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do stuff, whether it be binge watching and not caring what I'm eating, which is, and watching old shows that I used to watch, whether it be cartoons in the morning, or that afternoon rather, or watching episodes of Gilmore Girls, you know, things that I used to do, listening to Backstreet Boys like on repeat in the car, and I get to drive. I get to drive with the windows down and listen to the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. But if I had to choose, Backstreet Boys for life. Like,
Well, I mean,
he's like, no.
I mean, I liked NSYNC a lot better because I don't know, like
there's Justin Timberlake, and I mean, it's Justin Timberlake. I love Justin Timberlake. Okay, we just broke up. Podcast over. Like,
is it bad?
no, no.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like, oh my god, I was like, are we really breaking up right now? What is happening? What are you saying?
Remember, Capricorn likes to do like the real, like, man, that joke was kind of funny, but I don't know if you're real serious. But like,
No, I took it seriously. I was like, are you telling me something? Are we breaking up?
no,
Are we doing a public breakup?
I'm not breaking up with you. We for life. Can you imagine? It's like, how many light years did it take for us to find each other? Like, again, I'm like, no, let's not do this again.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I would like to play this weekend as well, you know? Like, I think that even as an adult, you think that, okay, it's the weekend, like, I should catch up and I should do the things. But again, like, if you just set a day aside, it's also like going to work. If you set a time aside to just tell yourself, from this time to this time, I will be dedicating myself to do this. And I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be present. I'm just going to allow myself to do that. And if we run out of time, you know what? I'm the adult and I'm reparenting myself into creating a different kind of structure, because it's really when you're playing with kids, there's no structure, it's all imagination, and the time just goes.
Yes. You know, the other thing too, kind of like with just practice for self-care and us processing things in emotional development. And again, you talked about this being like the time of creativity. That book you wanted to write, I mean, us being kids, we'd have imaginations of like stories, you know, trying to come up with one. Don't put it into like, maybe this could be a book. Just give it a shot. Maybe it could be, you know, or even the coloring, like the coloring. I have so many of those adult coloring books. It's not even funny.
Me too. That's actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because when the pandemic hit, I was like, what am I gonna be doing? So I bought myself like 2 coloring books. And there was like these like cityscape ones, and it was one that was I think New York, and the other one was Paris. And I was like, well, I mean, I love traveling, and I can't do that, so I guess I can travel through
Mhm.
coloring. And I bought myself like these really nice like coloring pencils. And at some point, it got was a lot of fun, but then I'm like, my fingers hurt. Like I don't do this a lot, and kids like write with pencil all the time, and you're like, my god, my hand's cramping. But still, like, there's still that determination of like, I'm gonna finish this page and it's gonna look great. And it's just like the satisfying feeling of like, wow, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Like once it's done and it's like, I'm gonna stick this on the fridge.
Mm-hmm. Or frame it or do a
Yes.
puzzle.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And who cares if you color inside the lines, outside the lines, shade, don't shade, like, don't make it harder. Just do. Um, what's another thing? I'm trying to think of things I used to do. I mean, rewatching my favorite movies, maybe watching the Disney movies,
Mm.
Mm, yeah, some of my favorites. Yeah, I'm sure if I pick The Little Mermaid, like Sarah's gonna be like, our favorite.
Actually, that's one of my favorites.
Really?
Well, because like
The Little
again,
Mermaid.
tying back to that inner child of just like, I don't know why a world of such wonderful things can be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
always spoken to me because I'm like, well, I don't want to stray away from what I've always known. But again, we all know that story is a little kind of twisted. But I mean, even then, like, tying it back to like, well, why don't you dream a little bit? Why don't you just go out and do it? I mean, I'm not going to sell my soul to some sea witch, but I mean, again, like, my voice is my everything I got. And if I don't have my voice, I
Mm-hmm.
can't rely on just my looks.
Yeah, and if you think about it from Ursula's perspective, um, there's jealousy involved. What was Ursula's upbringing from before? Like what trauma did she experience when she was younger? I know we're like laughing about it because it's a story, right? But
Mhm.
like, who's to say that she was just trying to, not so much in a healthy way, but she took Ariel's voice and she was able, as this witch under the sea, to shapeshift into what looked like Ariel when she got out
Mhm.
into land. And then there's Prince Eric, and but wanting to have her life of this beautiful voice, and that jealousy that goes into it of like, I wasn't really good enough, but you know what? I'm really good at being bad, which goes back to Jessica Rabbit. It's like, I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Mhm. And who's to say the sea witch was trying to teach her a lesson of like your voice is everything.
Hmm. 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 Yes.
Not only is your voice everything, but this is the reason why we're doing this, because we realize that not to, you know, honk our own horns here, but like it's within your voice, it's within your own personal narrative, it's your delivery, it's what you bring to the table that's truly important. It's not what you look like, it's not what you where you're from, it's really just what you're saying
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to be invited
Absolutely.
to the table.
Yeah. Uh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you had mentioned this, and I thought it was like the foretelling from like episode 1 before we were even talking about like the episode for like inner child. Um, and you mentioned it in the live, which I'm so still proud of you to do. I was just so excited. Um, but like a rainy day picnic, it's like we're making the best of this. We're just gonna put on our rain boots. Why don't we go splashing in puddles? Maybe it's raining
Mhm.
this weekend. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, just stuff
it's
like that.
it's a sort of like retelling. It's sort of like redirecting. Okay, so we can't do this, but we can do this. We still have
Mhm.
laughter. We still have
Mhm.
each other. Why don't we have a picnic in our car and
Yeah.
go on a drive somewhere, park our car, and we just have it in the car. You can't go
Yeah.
anywhere anyways, you know. It's raining outside.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say super cool, those drive-in movies that are coming back. Let me tell you, those are something special. So yeah, maybe going and watching the kid movies if they have them available. And everybody's gonna freaking enjoy it. But like make the best out of it. Get the food that you used to
Mhm.
eat, which mine was like the Doritos, chips, and which I still eat chips. Don't tell my dentist, but um I mean Sour Patch Kids, any of like the hot spicy candy, which I
Mhm.
love, you know, and just anything that was like your comfort food when you were younger, maybe, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know what else I have. Do you have something else?
I no, I don't have anything else. I think we concluded our episode today.
Yeah. I really like this topic. I did get to know you. Sorry, guys, if it kind of heard the paper shuffle. I took notes. I didn't go by them. You know, I thought that was really nice and organic. You know, but again, I wanted to be kind of prepared on touch on the topics, and I think we did. Just final comments. I find it very interesting personally for stepping into the role as a mother to my niece. Um, how more so there are people again like Kelly Ann. Um, not that we know each other personally, but I'm just like, look, if you don't know who she is, go watch her stuff. Um, uh, I find her very helpful for myself, and even a part of the craft and what she does. But she took the time to ask the questions because she was very uh she wanted to help others, but first in order to help others she had to help herself. um and so I feel a little more equipped with the person who dared to ask the questions of going as Alice, going after the rabbit, and her coming up with this because this is a lot of what I know we're going to be facing quite a bit with. So it does help that there's at least a little bit of instruction, even though we all come to Earth with no manual, but like
Mhm.
we have some things that we can work with. You know, we just have to be willing to, you know,
To be open,
exactly, exactly.
because you can't for you. I mean, again, it goes back to you can take water, a horse to water. You can't force him to drink. It's like you're gonna want to do it. No one's
Yeah,
gonna like force you to play or to do all these things. And if you're doing all those things, then you're literally dying.
yeah. Let's not end the podcast with dying.
No, we won't. We're not. We're tending to our inner child, and we are living within the lens of the view, within the lens of our inner child, but also realizing that like we have unlimited potential and freedom to do as much as we can as long as we give ourselves permission first and allowing yourself to ease our way there rather than having to be so forced, because we all know that creativity is never forced, play isn't necessarily forced, it just sort of spontaneously happens when a spontaneous combustion of creativity happens. It's important to jump in the pulse and do it, because creativity comes and goes. It's never, you can't force it, and you can't necessarily force like a musician to create a song. I mean, some artists are very talented in that way, but we're all not the same, and we all know that when we're creative and we're in that state of mind of flow, it's really about grabbing your materials to do so. And then when you like purge it out, it just feels so satisfactory, it feels so satisfying, it feels very cathartic, and that feeling is really emotional porn for me.
Yes.
Like, oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Or even
It's
crying, you know, even like I think that I always tell Capricorns to cry. I'm like, cry, it's fine. You
you
don't
see
have to
how
be
I'm
so
just
strong.
like, I was like this through the beginning of it. I was just like,
Because I often find that some of us were taught to be strong and never to show that and never to express it, or we were never given space to hold that. And in the very end of the day, like, if you don't do it for yourself, then no one's going to do it for you. But there are people that are willing to help you.
yes,
And it's always important to acknowledge that, like, even by others telling you, like, to reaffirm that, like, you're allowed to do those things. It's not silly, it's fun. And we all have people in our lives that really want us to be happy. And even if it's something so silly or something so um that's a nuisance, just do it.
yes, yes. And oh my goodness, it goes back to, I was just thinking in my head, the um be the kid, you know, um we find the balance. And the Capricorn especially, the don't mistaken my kindness for my weakness. Um, don't mistaken my sweetness for being naive.
Hmm.
And so on and so forth. Yeah.
I
But
agree with you.
yeah, but that is stepping in. That is stepping
Mhm.
into the power is what it
Mhm.
should be, and honoring you. So yeah. But I guess we can ask people, leave comments. Let us know
Mhm.
if you, I will actually I'll post down below the Kelly Anne-Maddox video um, for you guys to watch if you're interested. Um, and what would you do for your inner child day? How would you honor yourself in that inner child? Are you reparenting yourself, belief systems you had? Um, what else, Omar? What else? What else do you want to know from people who watch?
I suppose the pearl of wisdom that I could give others would be that it's never too late to
Mhm.
plan something that you always wanted to do. Because I went on a trip to Europe like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was either putting a down payment on a car or taking the opportunity to go and do something so wild. I have friends that live in Europe, so that I met when they were living in LA, and I went to visit them. I went on that trip, and what's actually very phenomenal as to how it happened was the exact same day that I was standing right in front of the Notre Dame church was the exact same day 4 years prior, me standing right in front of the church and thinking like, wow, and I wasn't going to go.
Mm,
And I wasn't going to go. And that really spooked me. So plan that trip. Even if
mhm.
like you could spend that money elsewhere, like it might seem silly, but it really does tend to heal your inner child of just like, I could be responsible. I mean, again, within reason. It's not just throw money and just wildly manically spend all our money. But again, it's
Right.
about within the planning of like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll take myself on a retreat. I will do that thing that I'm always so hesitant to do and give my permission to plan for this. And by the time you get there and it gets closer to the date, like you get so happy and you're like, wow, and I wasn't even going to do this. So
Did you have
do,
fun? Did you have
yeah.
fun?
But did you have fun though? Yeah, I did. I'm exhausted, but I mean, I did play and I got it out of my system, and you come back refreshed. So y'all, y'all want to go on a trip locally, or even get yourself in a state of mind where you want to escape your mundane schedule of routine and having things certain set, like set yourself aside to plan to have that. And when you do, don't distract yourself, be present, allow yourself to play. And if you want, like, if you have a partner, go husband, wife, brother, sister, whoever is in your household, play with them. I'll ask them if, like, hey, I kind of want to, watch a marathon of like Girls or whatever, and like, would you want to do that with me? And then we'll order pizza together, and just pretend like we're living like as if we're teenagers in this teenage dream, and really just do it, because
Yeah.
your future self will thank you for it. My future self thanked me for going on that European trip, because wow. And now we're living in a pandemic and we're not allowed to travel. I'm like, wow, at least I got to see it like pre-pandemic, you know?
That'd be crazy to plan, which I know you are going to go back. You and I had to talk about that, but yeah, you are going to go back. That would be interesting to see, like, how, when we are able to, what it would be on the after
Mhm.
going back. Absolutely.
But for now, just keep dreaming. Dream of possibilities. Allow yourself to be a child, to just, get lost in fantasy, even for a moment or a day. And I think that's just how I'm going to conclude my part.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for watching. Again, please leave a comment.
Until next time, Alice.
Until next time, Alice, we'll see you soon. We'll close it out. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I picked one. They are all folded into tiny little pieces. I can't remember which one I wrote. So hopefully it's not a serious topic. So being witch, definition of what it means to you. What classifies a person to be a witch or becoming witch, and how do you identify, and what made you want to identify?